Welcome to Kickass Radio, hosted by Jo Sainsbury, founder of Kickass Women. Join Jo over the next hour as she shares stories and conversations that are both inspiring and empowering. Having spent over 30 years in the corporate sector, Jo Sainsbury kicked off her heels and became a coal train driver working in the rail and mining industry. It has been her goal ever since to empower and support women who are considering a career change into an industry role, making the transition as smooth as possible. Jo is a walking, talking success story of how taking the plunge into industry can open up a world of opportunity. And you can do it too. If you're a woman working in industry or considering a career change, this is the radio station for you. Let's get into this episode of Kickass Radio.
Hey there, Glo-getters. Welcome to the Kickass Radio Show. It's good to be back in the chair. We've had a little disruption over the past couple of weeks. I've been on shift, as well as I've been interviewing some fantastic ladies for our upcoming shows. So stay tuned for the live interviews that will start to air from next week. And as well as our hosts at BBS Radio Network, they relocated to a new big office in Texas. And I say big because isn't everything big in Texas? I hope all went well, BBS Radio Network, and you've settled into your new digs nice and smoothly. And just putting it out there, it's my birthday today. So thank you all for spending some of your valuable time with me celebrating my birthday today. So happy birthday to me. And today on the show, we are talking about how women can help fill the oil and gas industry's talent gap. Yes, oil and prices go up and down, lately mostly down, but the help wanted sign, it's out there, loud and proud. There's a generation of workers nearing retirement and the pipeline of talent needs filling. New research identifies why women fail to advance and it suggests what the industry can do about it. So we're going to talk about that today. And companies that have a significant share of female leaders outperform their peers. According to McKinsey Global Research, companies in the oil and gas industry should carefully consider this insight, given that the industry has struggled to attract, retain, and promote women. Addressing this problem, it is important, and the sector faces an ageing workforce as well as demand for new kind of skills in areas such as advanced technology, machine learning, and robotics. And at the same time, the industry's appeal is declining among younger people. A decade ago, oil and gas was the 14th most attractive employer among engineering and IT students. Now it's 35th. Given the need for talent, it is critical for the oil and gas industry to deepen and diversify its pool. And one way to do that is to bring in and retain more talented women. There is a long way to go. Right now, women comprise only 15% of the oil and gas workforce. So let's find out how we can help break the gas ceiling in the oil and gas industry. You are listening to the Kickass Radio Show Kickstart, where we talk about all things women working in non-traditional roles in varied male-dominated industries, and I tell you how it is. I'm your host, Jo Sainsbury, the Glo-getter. I hope we can keep you in good company over the coming hour, and a huge shout out to all the women working out on track and on site today all over the globe. Stay safe and have a fantastic day or night shift. And this might be a good time for a trigger warning that today's radio show does and may contain some adult language. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're talking about breaking the gas ceiling in the offshore oil and gas industry, as well as just oil and gas industry in general. Now, we talk about WOW women, women on water. Water safety pioneer Margaret McMillan, now she was born in 1920 and passed in 2016. She, who in 1988 was instrumental in creating the Marine Survival Training Center at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. In 2004, McMillan was the first woman to be inducted into the Oilfield Energy Center of Hall of Fame in Houston, Texas. Now, another WOW woman was petroleum geologist Eve Howell, who was an inductee of the 2018 Hall of Fame. Now, Howell was the first woman to work and eventually supervise Australia's prolific Northwest Shelf. Now, just to clarify, when we talk about lack of women in the industry, that doesn't mean they're not there. There is some there. And if you consider the petroleum industry is worldwide and look beyond our own borders, you can really begin to appreciate the incredible achievements of women in this industry. Now, of course, women do not have to achieve the rank of C-suite to make an impact in the industry. Breaking the glass ceiling originally started as a broad overview of women in the oil and the gas industry, going back as far as the mid 1800s. It was so interesting to discover that women have been a part of the industry just as long as men have, which means from the very beginning. Science, technology, engineering, and math, the four disciplines commonly known as STEM capabilities, are the essence of oil and gas, and women have been pioneers. Nevertheless, the first woman in the US oil and gas industry started appearing after World War II. Now, during the war, many women became skilled factory workers that we know and enjoyed collecting a paycheck. And when the men returned from the war, they replaced women in the workforce. So across the oil and gas industry, even office jobs were filled by men. In the 1970s, when oil and gas companies were forced by federal civil rights laws, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, to hire more women to work offshore, those women who ventured offshore likely did it for the great pay. Of all the jobs associated with the offshore oil and gas industry, those typically defined as offshore on the drilling rigs and production platforms have been both the highest paying and the most difficult for women to get. Now, many of the first women offshore were from offshore oil and gas families. Thus, they were familiar with the various jobs and rotating schedules of 1 to 2 or more weeks on and a week or more off on most jobs. On the platform, shifts are typically in 8 to 12 hour tours, as they call them. And some of the women I'm going to mention all help lay the groundwork to directly or indirectly powering the modern energy industry and helped open the doors for countless other women to follow in their footsteps. Now, the first offshore jobs for women were in the galley under male supervisors. Women typically prepared food, washed dishes, and changed beds. When they wanted to advance their offshore careers, a few went into drilling, but a majority of those who wanted to advance went into production roustabout positions. Still, women are more prevalent in catering jobs. With women working offshore, changes needed to be made to the accommodations as well as to the culture. Bathrooms and living quarters were easily reworked, but the disruption to the way the men interacted with each other was a serious intrusion for some. Common derogatory teasing on the job, as well as sexual talk and pornography, had to be curtailed. Now, Florence Bascom was a geologist and was the first woman geologist to present a paper before the Geological Society of Washington in 1901. The first woman elected to the Council of the Geological Society of America. No other woman was elected until after 1945. She was a 4-star geologist in the first edition of American Men of Science, which meant that her colleagues regarded her as among the country's 100 leading geologists. Now, that's kick-ass. Okay, let's take a little break from the history and listen to a tune, and I'll be back with you soon.
Hi, I'm Jo Sainsbury, founder of Kickass Women. As a woman working in industry, I want to share my knowledge and experience and industry know-how to support you if a change in your life is what you are looking for. Join me on my radio show, Kickass Radio, every Friday morning at 10 a.m. across Australia or on Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. in the US. What are you waiting for? Go on, get your glow on.
Okay, so thanks for tuning back in. Now, I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm actually going to do a little bit of a book review because it's a book based on and written about this exact topic we're talking about today, women in the oil and gas industry. And it's a book I come across by accident last year during COVID, and I put my order online and I received it, and I was so thankful that I actually found it. And it was a great book and a great insight into the women in the oil and gas industry. So it's a book called The Oil Industry's Best Kept Secret. And as the offshore and oil and gas industry embarked on an unprecedented recruitment drive, they expected to see a more diverse workforce come to light. Now, the book, featuring inspiration and advice from high-profile women in the sector, it sheds light on a rewarding and fulfilling career, irrespective of one's gender. Now, the oil and gas industry is in the midst of a recruitment drive like never before, as it continues to emerge from a downturn. Now, according to a report commissioned by the Offshore Petroleum Industry Training Organisation, PETO, I believe it's called, together with the Robert Gordon University Oil and Gas Institute, the industry will need to recruit over 40,000 people by the year 2035 to satisfy demand. So that's not too far away. Now, this will also include around 10,000 people in new areas or roles that don't yet exist, including data science, robotics, material science, nanotechnology, and cybersecurity. The companies that will succeed in upskilling will be those that already understand the advantages of having a diverse workforce. Now, this should see more women recruited into the industry, and that's what the author of this book, Katie Heidenreich, believes. Now, it's a book full of inspiration and advice, and I can't say that enough. It was launched in November 2018 with the backing of BP, the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, Shell and Baker Hughes and GE Company. The book's central aim is to encourage more women to pursue careers in the critical energy industry. Now, this is underpinned by profile pieces and interviews of women who have already smashed through the glass ceiling of the offshore oil and gas sector, from engineers and field specialists to CEOs. Now, diversity of thought, and it's in praise of a mixed workforce. At present, women represent 1 in 4 of the workforce in the industry, and that's what Katie states. Yet, while we already make an incredible impact, all the evidence points to a new dawn of opportunity as companies look to creating and filling new roles. So, pursuing a more diverse, inclusive workforce is a key priority for the industry, Katie says, she herself occupied senior management roles in the UK, Norway and Azerbaijan before assuming her current position as upstream optimisation manager at Oil and Gas UK, and that was back in 2016. Now, women can bring different leadership skills and behaviours, but it's not just about diversity of gender. It's about diversity of thought. More balanced teams make better decisions, and we all know that. Before this could happen, though, the oil and gas industry perhaps needs to do more to slough off its stereotypical image as a man's world. This is no longer the case, and Katie writes that in her foreword, and it hasn't been for some time, she says. Not enough people outside the oil and gas industry understand what they're about, she says. Poorly founded misconceptions mean that many would overlook the industry and miss out on one of the best industries. Now, female STEM students no longer are an anomaly. There are, however, factors working in women's favour to reverse this trend. Firstly, more women today are choosing to study STEM subjects, providing a natural pathway into these industries, into the oil and gas industry. Now, this wasn't always the case, said one of Katie's interviewees, Dame Judith Hackett. Now, Hackett, who recalls studying chemical engineering at Imperial College in the mid-1970s at a time when she and her fellow female students were treated with suspicion by the opposite sex. The girls on her course were treated as a bit odd, she said, and she received a damehood in 2017 for services to engineering and health and safety. Now, that's pretty prolific, isn't it? And there were 5 of them in their intake of 75, the most they'd ever had, 5 women. But it wasn't unusual for people to ask, what makes a girl do chemical engineering? And all 5 of them encountered that attitude, but they all had good answers. A lot of the boys on the course had no idea why they were doing it. And they had at least given it some thought because they were often asked to explain it. And what about the different world, the great outdoors and taking the chopper to work? Get to the chopper. Really poor rendition of that. Through her case studies, Heidenreich successfully paints a picture of career in the offshore sector as an exciting one. Several interviewees, such as Lindsay Gordon, a petroleum engineer at BP, described life away from land as the perfect antidote to the tedium of an office job. Life offshore is a different world, she says. The platforms and FPSOs, the floating production, storage and offloading, are amazing feats of engineering. The camaraderie is second to none, which is important when you're together for weeks at a time. To round it off, she gets to take a helicopter to work. And how friggin' cool is that? Then there was Carolyn Gill. She was a lead geologist at Shell in the UK, and she also described a passion for the outdoors as being a key driver in her career choice. Now, Gill is a former Aberdeen director of the Petroleum Exploration Society of Great Britain and a familiar face on the petroleum conference circuit, and also credits her choice of career in helping bolster her self-confidence again. And she said she's always had quite a bit of self-doubt, but then I've always surprised myself, she says. I've given over 50 conference preparations. Initially, I would have to know every word that I would say. It's only experience that has given me that bit more confidence to turn up and do it without feeling that I had clobbered it to be absolutely death, she said. So then they get on to talk about why work and having family needn't be mutually exclusive. So several of Heidenreich's interviewees describe the challenges of balancing work and family life, especially tricky when away from dry land for long stretches at a time. So for Gill, who had 2 children with her geologist husband, flexibility was essential. And as a couple, they both have the flexibility to work at home, and they can pick up any outstanding work once their children are in bed. It's totally an equal partnership that both of them do, and they do their fair share. Even when they're working long hours, it doesn't impact on their family life, they both said. Hackett, who began her career at ESSO, says she was able to make time for her family by being decisive from the outset, and that bringing up children and forging ahead in one's career needn't be mutually exclusive. And her words were, I loved working there at ESSO, but realised they wanted me to join the international circuit and work abroad. My husband and I both had careers, and we had 2 daughters. We could see that managing dual careers abroad, together with family priorities, was going to be difficult. So she decided to move on. I chose to take control and manage my own career. Now, what can women really expect upon entering in the industry? Well, while aware they still represent a minority, the unanimous message of Heidenreich's book is that women who enter the offshore oil and gas industry, in whatever capacity, can expect to be treated with much more respect than perhaps anticipated. And then there was Lauren Hughes. She's a field specialist for wireline services at Baker Hughes, a GE company. And she described her time working on a Canadian rig. She said, I didn't feel I was treated any differently. If anything, it's usually people being nicer to you. I didn't really think about the fact that it was male dominated. So there's mixed perspectives, mixed perceptions, and it's all really about finding out more about these industries and for women to talk to more of these role models. So in Heidenreich's opening chapter, she correctly describes an oil and gas industry in a state of flux as it looks to improve across to clean energy, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and boost investment in low carbon technologies. So despite progress made in the renewable sector, oil and gas will still be responsible for supplying around half of the world's primary energy needs. Put simply, the industry will be around for a long, long time to come. So for this reason alone, companies cannot afford to be closed-minded. Only a diverse workforce will be equipped to deal with the enormous task at hand. So what about today's offshore women? And it's no secret the oil and gas industry is facing a labour shortage. Recruiting and retaining women in the industry is critical. Though the progress they've made as an industry is notable, they are running out of people, men or women, to work offshore. The numbers out of universities continues to decline. Employers are looking for competent, efficient, educated people. They don't care if employees are female or male. The industry can no longer afford to be picky. And then we had Carolyn Emerson, who was a project coordinator at the Canadian Centre for Women in Science, Trades and Technology. And she works closely with women in the oil and gas industry. And she cannot stress enough the skill shortage crisis the industry is facing. By recruiting women, companies can pull from a broader pool of talent. Likewise, the return on investment is just as important. Emerson also pointed out that there's a shift in engineering and the trades. Companies are much more aware of the importance of harassment policies and accommodations for women. Lots of organisations have changed to improve workplace environments, but challenges still exist. The more women oil and gas companies can attract and retain, the easier it will be to attract more women. And then Shrimpton believes that girls and women have preconceptions of the oil and gas industry, which is the biggest hurdle the industry must overcome, not policies and practices. When women think about the oil industry, they think about helicopters, FPSOs, and isolation on a rig for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. On that basis, they count themselves out of the industry. The industry needs to make it clear that there are various job opportunities related to the offshore oil and gas industry for women. Some jobs require a short time offshore, some require no time offshore, and others offer the chance at international travel. So coming back to some more pioneering women, there was Angela Ebenson. Now, Angela was a technical secretary for the Tripartite Arena Safety Forum, managed by Petroleum Safety Authority in Norway. And that was a mouthful. And noted in her paper, Norwegian's Women's Oil History, in a 25-year perspective presented at the Fueling the Future conference in Newfoundland back in March 2011, she said today's international oil disasters affect the whole sector's reputation and the perception people, including women, have of offshore work as associated with great risk. It must be recognised that the increased focus being given to major accidents helps to underpin its macho image and draw attention away from the fantastic opportunities it offers. Emerson pointed out the efforts of oil and gas companies to change the public's preconceptions through advertisements. As Shrimpton said, many women don't envisage themselves on a platform, but they are now seeing women with men in advertisements. Those are the people who design and operate the technology. Women may not know that there are opportunities to work as part of a team, possibly in an office, and the work can be creative. There are a number of companies that require specific skills to operate a rig, so you need to find an area where your skills will match the position that they advertise. Both Emerson and Shrimpton and also Eberson noted that Norway employs the greatest number of women offshore, albeit clustered in certain job types, but largely because of the country's many family-related benefits, such as daycare system and other family and parental benefit system, which makes it easier for parents to share family responsibilities and hereby makes it easier for women to choose untraditional jobs. Regardless, Norway is still a long way to gaining equality. Eberson wrote, while the female proportion of offshore personnel in 1985 was 3.5%, the PSA's data show that it had risen to 9% by the year 2000. Developments do not appear to be moving in the right direction. However, since that figure was unchanged back in 2011. Eberson also agreed that some progress had been made for female participation in male-dominated jobs, especially when it comes to management positions, but the picture remains fairly traditional, with women accounting to 45% of catering personnel offshore, and it grew to 54% in 2011. So we're still talking like 8 years old worth of data, but it hasn't increased or influxed by massive percentages. And Norway still employs more women than Canada and the US. It was also pointed out that Canada has made strides in the last 10 years. The province of Newfoundland and Labrador started requiring employment and business opportunities in all large natural resource projects to be open not only to residents of Newfoundland and Labrador and other Canadians, but also to women Aboriginal peoples, visible minorities, and persons with disabilities. In the case of Husky Energy's White Rose oilfield project in Newfoundland and Labrador, Husky was required to provide specific initiatives to promote training, recruitment, retention, and promotion of women. Shrimpton said the project was challenging because it involved the cultures of the petroleum and construction industries. While both have made progress respecting employment equity, both have histories of excluding and marginalising women. Husky was successful in boosting its numbers of women involved in the project. According to Husky Energy diversity reporting, the White Rose management was made up of 17% women, administration and clerical had 81% women, engineers had 13%, technicians and technologists was at 11%, and professionals, as in accounting, geology, IT and HR, they made up 40% of women. Skilled trades had 3%, marine crew was at 4%, and other field services came in at 7%. In addition, 38% of students involved were women. As for the US, there is no single effort to increase the numbers of women in the offshore petroleum industry. Various trade groups and training organisations have developed programs and advertising campaigns to reach out to women, but these have not been coordinated. So in the US, because of the size and distribution of the industry, it's difficult to obtain reliable numbers of people who work in the industry. Therefore, we didn't have numbers on the percentage of women either. So some sectors, such as engineering, have had greater success at attracting women than craft trades like welding. Okay, I need a little breather. Let's listen to one of our sponsors and I'll be back with you shortly.
Hey Glo-getters, have you heard about Kickass Women? Founded by Jo Sainsbury, Kickass Women is dedicated to empowering and supporting women who are considering a career change into an industry role. Visit our brand new website at www.kickasswomen.com.au or follow Kickass Women on Facebook and LinkedIn today to keep up to date with all things Kickass Women and the incredible opportunities and content we have for you. See you there, Glo-getters.
Okay, so up to Kickass Women making waves. For the women who break the glass ceiling and pave the way for others up. This week we are recognising the extraordinary achievements and contributions women have made and continue to make in our unbalanced world. So if you're not familiar with this segment, each week I introduce or recognise extraordinary achievements and contributions women have made and continue to make in our unbalanced world. We live in an exciting period of the ground for change to a more gender balanced world as well. People speaking up and demanding responsibility for supply. Women are making their own research in a world that often serves up as first. These trailblazers through courage, perseverance, talent to satisfy, defying societal norms, the love of their work, proving equality in life, and our mothers, daughters, sisters, our words, and refugees. So each week I try to spotlight on one or a collective of these extraordinary women who are making and are inspiring. So this week at the Making Waves Spotlight is on Kickass, a for-profit company funded by Shell and others in the industry, focused on recruiting women. So it's a social media challenge that is hoping to translate goals in the state of Kickass. That's the good old boy. Never meet another. For most of its history, the oil and gas industry is known. Could have started with the opening line from the Dukes and Harris of things not well done. As we said earlier, the facts remain women still make up only about 19% of the work. According to the study quoted on the American Economy. That study found that the largest barrier to women seeking is the lack of knowledge of the past. Hey Murnard is attacking that barrier to lack of knowledge of youth community. Starting with an idea scribbled on an airline cocktail during a flight to London. Bernard the first social media channel launched in March of 2015. It began seen on a worldwide level. 3 months after its March date, the show boasts 500 women in 18 countries, representing 120 In mid-June, Bernard shared her vision with an enthusiastic audience of about 100, mostly women, at Midland TFLOW building. The whole goal of Think Expo is not just to unite and connect women and socialise and study, but also to develop groups, but also to develop resources, help us get access to the information we need quickly. Unlike most other social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and others, membership in Mernar's site is subscription-based. Costs range from $50 per year for the unemployed up to $500 per year for top tier. Now, this said, Mernard assures that all members are serious about the goals of Think Expo and are not there to sell something, spam other members, or to do anything else that wins in focus. It means the site is no noise or quality. It also allows Think Expo staff to be full-time and fully devoted to expanding the site's scope and purpose. On the plane flight from London, she was working for BBS at the time. Bernard sat next to a gentleman who refers to as Papa, who asked her why she wasn't home with her 4-year-old daughter instead of working in the oil field with AEST Angels. A long overseas flight with only some wine, cocktail napkins, and gave her time to think about and respond to what the man had said. I started to think, we could take social media and use it to disrupt the gender gap. What I mean by that is, it couldn't take 30 years for my 4-year-old daughter to see some sort of parody. We've used social media as a chance for women in the industry to connect, learn, share resources, and help each other. Bernard shared a particular example. 2 weeks prior to that airline flight, a woman lost her job at BP in Houston and announced then that she got a job through Think Expo, through people the woman had met through the channel. That's why it exists. It exists to connect you to people you need to know and people that need to know you. There's also a place to ask questions and connect with people from their walks of life. Bernard herself, bred in the oil fields of Louisiana, got into the oil and gas business after 2 significant events. Her father, an oil field engineer, warned her not to, telling her to become either a lawyer or a fisherwoman, and a meeting with a woman who was an engineer for Shell who encouraged Bernard to go into oil and gas anyway. She has worked safely for both Shell and BP, signing on with the latter right after Macondo was installed and providing for them to get out. According to her website, her current venture is called Cognosis, which offers strategic change management solutions. As for goals, Bernard said LinkedIn has around 300,000 women members who are in the oil and gas sector. If we can get the best 10% of them, that would be 30,000. Throughout her talk at Team Flow, she has expressed quantity over quality. With those numbers, she hopes to help companies understand where we in the industry stand. She also pointed to the fact that due to the long oil busts of the 80s and 90s, when few people into the business, there is about to be a huge talent pool when the current generation retires over the next few years. That's a huge amount of experience that can't easily be replaced. To fill these gaps, the industry must widen its recruitment and women and development. Guys are already good at networks. They're always ready to help each other out. We hope that they will help women to do the same. We can't take another 30 years to get parity to report, citing the fact that her young daughter is saying she wants to grow up and be an engineer. At that point, Bernard acknowledged that there are already efforts to bring women into engineering in particular, and that we need to give them a whole host of options, not just an engineer. We need to show them all the paths. Women can also spread a more positive view of the industry to the general population, noting that everyone knows about the rise, although they did back then quite about men. But not everyone realised how much the world depended on oil for things like plastics and cell phones, computers and other devices. Women in the industry can help spread the positive as well. As for Think Expo itself, the media site does not have an approval process for membership, giving you permission to have a voice in oil and gas. Many people, male and female, find it refreshing. She decided more women need to be in this dark and dangerous and well-paying, rewarding, challenging industry critical for a functioning world. And King Petro's Moon-Up says the industry has gotten better about riding the ups and downs and still hiring, a theory that may be tested. We need to be wrong on talent and culture. It says that there are two keys to successful effort to hire women. First, it's just convincing women to apply at all. Moon-Up intentionally picks colour pink, even though she doesn't really like it, to be eye-catching, capture the attention of women and tell them the energy story. It's a story that nobody really understands. I've flown the world, I've seen things I never would have seen. The second issue is that once women are hired, advancements can become. The biggest barrier women face in the industry is visibility and access to what opportunities exist. So congratulations to King Petro, you are all one hell of a Kickass Women Making Waves. Shout out to Kickass Women Making Waves series is all about recognising that our success and where we are in life is at least somewhat thanks to the efforts, support, mentorship, love and encouragement of others. So if there's someone that you want to dedicate a shout out to, nominate them, send me an email at dodie@kickasswomen.com.au and we'll make sure they get the recognition they deserve. Okay, let's take a little break and we'll be back soon to do our take 5 and wrap it up.
Hey Glo-getters! Did you know that Jo Sainsbury is a published author for her book High Heels to High Vis and has been named an Amazon #1 bestseller? Telling the story about Jo's transition from the corporate sector into industry, High Heels to High Vis acts as a guide for women who are considering a non-traditional role and career. High Heels to High Vis is available for purchase online at all leading bookstores, including Amazon, Dimmicks, Waterstones and eBay.
Okay, we're up to our take 5. Let's get the message out there. So starting out in oil and gas, number 1, if you get lucky, pick up your luck and run with it. Point 2 is equality in oil and gas. Men and women are usually treated equally, if not in equal numbers. Point 3, maternity leave and childcare. Career break does not equal career break. Career break is not thought of as signifying the potential in the career. Many people, men as well as women, take breaks. Some have a complete reason, like the need family, but many want to eventually resume their previous career. I believe we should make it easier for yourself. Having invested in years of training already, giving a return on this training has to be a cost-effective way of retaining knowledge and experience for everyone. Point 4, the best tools are knowledge and experience. All experience is valid. Point 5, it's flexible. Think for what it is. There is no one way to develop it in your career. You don't need a rigid plan. Keep open-minded, always be adaptable. Most of all, enjoy yourself. And lastly, the safety affirmation is it's just got to be the most base one. Can't be what can't be. So we okay, that's it for today's show. I hope you have enjoyed the show today, and I hope you all found the information not too valuable. As always, I really appreciate you guys giving me your time to listen to this radio show. Find more information on the episode, if you don't know, on my social media page, either on Facebook and Instagram. Be sure to tune in again next week when we kick off our live guest interviews. Reach out to me and follow me on my Scouselin or Jo Sainsbury social media page if you haven't already, and I would really love to hear from you. So show some love with the Kickass Radio Show by leaving me a review on BBS Radio Network. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for your company and for listening to Kickass Radio. It's not goodbye, but see you later. Stay safe as well. Go tough it. Keep in touch. First time. Go on, get your glow on. Become a glow-getter.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Kickass Radio, where we kick goals and deliver empowering conversations for women. Want to hear more from Kickass Women and Jo Sainsbury? Visit the Kickass Women website or follow Kickass Women on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. See you on the next episode of Kickass Radio.